How's it going, friends? Hope you're well. It's been a really hard couple of weeks here in Colorado. Of course, we're all mourning here after someone walked into a grocery store in Boulder and took the lives of 10 people. It's been heavy on our hearts here in Colorado, but obviously we're not unique. There's been several mass shootings already in our country over the past several weeks. Another one just in Orange, California. It's a trend we've seen for a long time. And as a reporter, as an anchor, a storyteller, a journalist, a writer, you may have to, if you haven't already, report on tragedy, terrible things that happen to people. You'll be speaking with loved ones, family members. It weighs on your heart. It does. It's not easy. It may be the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my career. And I want to offer you some advice. I'm not an expert. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not going to pretend to be, but there's one piece of advice that I got years ago while in Kansas City. This helped me a little bit, and I really hope it can help you too. But first, I also want to say that you want to be human. Don't be a robot. Don't pretend to not care. You need to show compassion. I really hope you're compassionate. I really hope you show loved ones, victims and their families, not just the respect they deserve, but you show them compassion. That being said, you need to be human. And when you're human and you're reporting on these tragedies, you're going to absorb some of those feelings, some of that energy. That's natural. You should, frankly. But you also want to be mentally healthy and spiritually healthy at the same time. So, again, in Kansas City, I used to work there as a dayside reporter. A very rewarding job, but probably the hardest job I've ever had. I lost count on how many vigils I had to cover, how many shootings, how many families dealing with death, whether it was a gang-related shooting, maybe it was teenagers who died in a DUI crash. I had to cover some really heavy stuff. I also did a story in Kansas City about how a local sheriff was helping his team deal with tragedy, because as a first responder, you can only imagine the heavy hearts and the feelings that our officers or deputies or firefighters have to face, have to deal with. This sheriff's recommendation was just this. He would tell this to his deputies, and now I try to live by this as well. Every day I go home, I get in this routine. When you go home, doesn't matter what you did that day, when you go home, take off your uniform, change clothes. Whatever you were wearing that day when you dealt with that tragedy, change clothes. It may just be a mental thing, but you're allowing your mind to say, okay, I'm putting this behind me for the day, and I'm moving on to this. I'm moving on to spending time with my family, my friends. I'm unwinding. Now, it can't be just as that simple. You're going to change clothes and you're going to be a different human. I'm not saying that, but by simply getting out of your uniform, and guys, this is our uniform. Ladies, your dress, maybe it's your station jacket, whatever you're wearing that day, that's your uniform. When you get home, take this off. Get into more comfortable clothes, and you'll find that not only is it just comforting physically, it's comforting mentally, possibly spiritually. And also, that being said, make sure you block out a time of day, because I realize as a reporter, as a journalist, you can't always just clock out, right? We're always on the clock. So maybe it's also as simple as, okay, I'm going to change clothes, but I'm going to block this time of the evening to make sure I check my email one last time. Or I'm going to make sure that I speak with my wife or my husband or my friend. Maybe it's a coworker before you leave the day. I'm going to block this time out to speak about what's happened. And then make sure you have the rest of that day, the rest of that evening to unwind, put that behind you. And for me, it's gone a long way. We're going to keep reporting on tragedies. It's part of the job. It's part of our calling. At the end of each video, I like to say, let's be atypical. Let's lift each other up. But I also want to add this. Compassion first, news second. And when you show that compassion, you're going to be human. You're going to absorb some of those feelings, some of that energy. But make sure you also find time to deal with your mental health and your spiritual health. Hope that helps.